This program is brought to you by Maria Quincesia Minerals,
पंचामृता फोर्टिफाइड राइस। फोर्टिफाइड यानी प्लस एफ साइन। पंचामृता फोर्टिफाइड राइस में होते हैं आयरन, कैल्शियम, जिंक, फॉलिक एसिड, विटामिन ए, बी जैसे 9 तरह के मिनरल्स जो देते हैं संपूर्ण पोषण।
पंचामृता फोर्टिफाइड राइस यानी संपूर्ण पोषण स्वस्थ जीवन। अब घर घर में पंचामृता।
Wilson, Molginis, and internet partner Dairy.
आयकू बेनू, गोंय म्हजे डोलता रेंदेरेच्या गितान, शेतकाराच्या शेतान आणि दोंगुल्ल्याच्या माथ्यार। आणि हे सगळें करता आसतना गोंयचो वेवसाय हो तितलोच मोलाचो असो जाल्लो आसा। आमी पळयतात हालीं बिझनेस ऑपॉर्च्युनिटीज खासा गोंयकारां खातीर उरलेल्यो ना। जायते लोक हांगासर येतात, आपलो वेवसाय धंदो सेटअप करतात, पूण आमी खंय ना खंय तरी फाटीं उरतात आनी हाचेर उजवाड घालपा खातीर हो मुखावयलो असो सत्र आनी हें सेशन जावन आसा। हांव मागतां हर्षवर्धन सरा लागीं की तांणी मुखार येवन ही माची सांबाळची। आपली वेगळी वळख करपा खातीर तितलेच कांयशे लोक धडपड लेगीत करतात आनी तांकां एक वेगळो विचार मेळचो, तांच्या स्वप्नांक एक वेगळी रुजवण मेळची देखून आमी हे मुखावयले सत्र हांगासर घडोवन हाडटा। मागता नेटान ताळयो मारत आमच्या मुखावयल्या पॅनलिस्टांक ह्या माचयेर आपोवणें दिवया। आयचे ह्या दिसाचें सेकंड लास्ट सत्र हांगासर संपन्न जाताना आमी पळयतात सगळ्यांक मनाकायजांतल्यान येवकार फावो करता आनी मुखावयली सुत्रां जी आसा ती MD मोमानेस्त हर्षवर्धनजी हांच्या कडेन सोंपयता। चडांत चड देव बरें करूं।
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to My Goa Network. This is our inaugural session today. We have started this app-based digital TV channel focused on Goa and all things Goan. This is our session that we are going to discuss now on business and doing business in Goa. We have an extremely enlightened set of panelists today. We have Anirudh Dempo, who is currently the president of Goa State Industries Association. We have Sriram Natarajan, senior industrialist and perhaps Goa's India's leading unicorn and Goa's only unicorn. He's the CEO of Molbio Diagnostics. We have Damodar Kochkar, past president of Goa State Industries Association and a very leading and vocal person on industrial issues based in Goa. And last but not least, we have Awais Mohiddin, who is the CEO of Mohiddin Properties. He's going to present to us the perspective from the real estate business. Without further ado, I'll launch straight into my questioning and I'll start with Anirudh. Anirudh, this is one of the most oft-repeated questions, but it's also a very important one. How do you think the ease of doing business in Goa should work out? Or is there any ease of doing business? And if there are steps to be taken, what do you suggest as an industry head?
Thank you Harsh for having me. I've been sort of doing ease of doing business related activities with the industry for the last 7-8 years. To an extent, before I took over as president, during my past president's Kochkar's time as well, I was usually in this, and we've looked at it from the technology point of view. And typically, we think of technology as what is the solution to ease of doing business. But I think as a philosophical level, we have to acknowledge, and especially forums like this is important to say so, that doing business itself is not easy. So we have next to us, you introduced Mr. Natarajan. He's one of the examples of having worked really, really hard for 30, 40 years, and today we have the result of that. So doing business in the best of scenarios is not easy. So the one thing we want is, in an already difficult, very difficult job, you don't want to make things worse. So when we talk about ease of doing business, that is essentially what we are looking at. Secondly, we are in the world today of, in the last decade itself, of hyper competition, which means that survival of fittest has become so, you can say, distinct, that the big companies will continue to become bigger and bigger, and that's what's reflected in the stock markets, where you have 15 and 20, and the smaller guys are simply not, the size is not significant enough to exist. So then what is the ease of doing business over there? So what I'm trying to set the expectation is that merely by government doing ease of doing business, not all businesses will survive, because the atmosphere itself is not very easy. And but what there is understanding, and there is generally in the government as well. I think if you ask most industries today, in pure industry, very few people would have paid a bribe, for example, or have had to do it regularly. You know, it might be an odd case, but it is not something that is affecting on a day-to-day. So that part has been reasonably, you know, we are not at 6 feet below zero as far as that is concerned. But that's not good enough. We have to be as good as what the business operating parameters are in the rest of the country. I mean, just because the telegram took 8 days to reach in 20 years ago, today even 1 day is not good enough, right? You need things in 15 minutes and 10 minutes. So in today's context, we are still slow. If I'm not going too long, just give me 30 seconds and I'll wrap up this opening remark. We started with two facets of ease of doing business, which even came from the center. One is policy, and the other is the enabling technology to deliver ease of doing business. I think policy level Goa is doing reasonably well. I think in IDC, especially if you've seen the new regulations that have come, have streamlined things. Technology level, we are backing. We did create something called Goa Online, but Goa Online is only the facade. It's like the fake set that you have during a movie or whatever. It's just a facade. Inside it, at the back end, there has to be a real structure, and that is still paper-based today. There's no electronic trail of the paper moving. So once you upload something, if it is going to be printed in a paper, put in a file and sent across departments, then the purpose is not really met. And you don't need a novel solution for that. There is an e-office solution which is done by half the states, and Goa has not done it. There is no reason why Goa shouldn't do it. That is probably the next step we need to be looking at to make things faster and have all these paperwork move faster. Will that solve all our problems? No, but that is a necessary but probably not sufficient condition, but it is certainly a necessary condition, and we are delayed in that. So if there's one thing I would say, do that. And that incidentally was our GSI's pitch during the budget as well. What do you want? We don't want any freebies, just please start doing e-office. It takes time, but please start doing it now. No? So that's my opening.
Sriram, Goa has been projecting or trying to project itself as a startup destination. What do you think Goa needs to do to actualize that goal, that vision?
Yeah, thank you for calling me here first. Nice to be in the panel. I'll take on a little bit from him and then come to the topic that you're asking me. So talking about ease of doing business, you know. So the yardsticks which are used to measure ease of doing business do not translate to what is practically required for a business to be, you know, done with ease, as you said, right? So first of all, if you say the ease of how fast can you start a business as a parameter for ease of doing business, I don't think that's a criteria really that's very important, right? You have to see how fast they can close the business. Because many times our startup companies, you do a lot of things and not all of them will succeed. And the moment you start a company and you see that it's not working, it's so difficult to wind up that company that you lose all steam in doing that. So that by itself is a killer. I'm just giving an example, right? So we need to really identify, and that answers the second part of what you're asking me. What we should be doing, I think we should generally help companies to do what they want to do, of course within legal ambit, but not become hurdles to various steps of that process, and play a proactive role, understanding that businesses are difficult, as you rightly said, and especially startup businesses are really hard, because startup people are, you know, generally young people with a lot of ideas, a lot of innovation in their mind, but they don't know the ecosystem, they don't know how to, you know, go through this process. And while they have this initial energy and start doing something, as they go along, they see so many hurdles that they lose the steam again. And most of them don't even come to any reasonable level, right? So those kind of things are completely, hampering innovations, especially in India. And good projects, good ideas don't translate to where they should be reaching, right? So I think it's important to have a clear effort to help with the attitude has to change, and everybody should play a helping and a enabling role and not try to pose hurdles everywhere. Because that itself is a very daunting thing for startups, but even for me, after 40 years, I still struggle many times for no reason. I mean, everything is straightforward, everything is clear, but I still have to struggle for many things. If that is for me, I can understand what is going to happen to some small person who's just starting in his life. So I would say from every point of view, the government point of view also, and also from the policy makers, the bureaucracy, the attitude has to change. If that doesn't change, we are not going to see anything really happening. You can keep on making policies, but the policies will never get implemented just because the attitudes are not right. And as long as the government thinks that the industry is a chore, and the industry thinks the government is a chore, it is not going to work. So we all have to come to a clear understanding that everybody is playing a significant role towards nation building, towards building economies, and each one is important and each one depends on each other, right, to make it happen. The symbiotic relationship. That should be clearly understood. If that happens, I think everything else will follow, right? And we have to work together and not as two different parties, let's say.
Damodar Bab, तुमका प्रश्न म्हजो असो की is Goa industry friendly? Rather, what is the gap between is Goa industry friendly? And what is the gap between promises that the powers that be do and the reality in business?
Yeah, as both of them said, see, to do any business for a new or old, first he should know what are the procedures. It should be clear cut. Now, after so much, talking about this ease of doing business and all, current government industry ministry came out with a industrial policy. Now, policy is very good. Now, once the policy is out, it won't benefit directly to us. So we said that the act and the regulation needs to be amended, which also is done. Okay. Now, as he said, it should not be like you should go and get these things to be done. Now, technology has reached so much, and new generation is looking to perform directly on a laptop. They don't want to go and visit. So what I was saying, now suppose somebody in Kuwait, Goan guy, wants to start a business in Goa, he should be able to do it from there without having to find out, the person to mediate. That mediator thing, what do you call it usually?
The touts.
Touts. That should go. If that portion you are clear, then we have no issue. As you asked the question, that situation we have not reached. Why we have not reached? Our intent is there, but there are various issues. So, government side they are showing the intent, but what I have noticed is whoever is in political position, he doesn't want everything to be transparent. He wants people to come to them. Second thing is, same gets translated down the line. So when top bosses want like that, the person at the lower level also wants you to come and back to him for any work. Now, I'll give you the simple example. I'm not talking about IDC also. That day CDB was talking about, online application. What they are saying, you send me the papers and we will put for you, you help. I said, no, I want to see how your system works. I asked my son to upload all the papers. They said it's online, application is submitted, so that should be, then they should decide, no? They are saying, no, you send me, they send me 14 lists. these papers you send it separately by mail. I said, what is the point of online? So this kind of level of thing we need to do, and it's not a rocket science. If the intent is there, it can be done very easily, and then the manpower also will be required will be less, and we will be happy. And the new generation now looking at, now if you see, like when we talk like this, when first unicorn in Goa talks about ease of doing business, that he is not happy with the transaction, he is facing problem. You think about what the person will do. When I started business in Goa, I didn't had similar issues. When there was no technology, in fact. But when I went to IDC, I could get the IDC land without paying anything. You know, I am very grateful to them. The people were very simple. They used to come, they'll call me. Project report, if there is any mistake, they will correct it. And diligently I started my business. But now if I want to expand, if I want to start, see, for example, my son had applied for the plot in Toyam, that electrical this thing. You believe me, 1 year has passed. Money is paid. There are no meetings. He's saying no meetings are happening because that consultancy firm is not there. Now, do you have to go after all these things? This is a pathetic thing. So nobody else will come forward to start a business in Goa. People are happy with keeping the FD, because FD, if you see, the Goa FDs are increasing. More than 1 lakh. Nobody want to invest. Why?
Aviz, you represent an industry which is often targeted by the government as well as civil society. As a real estate entrepreneur, what are the pain points that you face currently of doing business in Goa?
So, let me first add to this, because you said I represent industry. I'm also, in my personal capacity and as Secretary of CRADAI, I think I should point out the question in the light that you wanted to be addressed in. But let me give you a little perspective before that. About real estate industry, about 2015, the contribution to the GDP of real estate was about 5%. In about 23, it's about 8%, and expected to go to 15% by 2030. And that is the trajectory that the real estate has shown now. Now, the other side of it is the indirect contribution to the GDP. Let's look at that. Real estate is a major consumer for 250 industries, major consumer. And those 250 industries contribute between 40 to 45% to the GDP. So when you see in the overall perspective, direct and indirect, close to 50% is where real estate gives to the GDP. And that comes to address to the point that the major pain points that come to the industry despite having such direct and indirect contribution to the GDP is mind-boggling. Now, what we need to do is, like we were talking about doing ease of business. I do not want to get into where and what, but there are certain models that can be adopted and taken from the country in certain parts of the country. Like in Andhra, there is a beautiful system where you have single window clearances, licenses are in place, conversions are done. Anything between 30 to 60 days time period, it's done. Here we struggle for months and years together to get things in order, paperwork in order. Of course, Goa is very unique in that way because the legal system here is having communal facades, Portuguese laws, all these things come into picture. But it's not that it's impossible to achieve. Now, in terms of the government's input on what we want to try to achieve in terms of ease of doing business, or in the other side of it, addressing the pain points of what you want to understand, we have actually come a long way, and we have yet to go a very long way. So let me spell out that for you. For example, of late you must have seen the TCP ministry becoming very active in terms of active as in proactive. So I would say proactive because for the last
couple of decades, the rules and regulations were not touched. Now we are looking at inviting golf courses, we are looking at inviting farmhouses, we are looking at having these kind of areas which have never been addressed in our bylaws or in terms of the regulations that Goa brings. Introduction of the 39A where zone changes can be done, of course through a specialized committee which is appointed, and there is a town planner involved, there are specialized agencies involved in getting all this done. So this is quite proactive. But on the other side of it, there are certain areas where infrastructure itself is not completely developed. A lot of villages do not have MRF facilities. A lot of villages are stuck because the court has ordered not to go ahead without the MRF facilities. So people who are staying in those villages or want to do some development in the village is completely stuck, especially in the Salsette Taluka. Now, one more point coming, which is linked to MRF, is the STP issues, that is sewage treatment plants. Why can't government have sewage treatment plant and sewage networks all over the state? Because then it solves the problem of, I don't know if you're aware, but anything more than 20 units in a residential project needs to have a sewage treatment plant. Now, sewage treatment plant of that nature, first 5 years is run by the developer. After that, it goes to the society. It is never run properly. It doesn't solve the purpose. Over the next 5 years, 10 years, it just stops performing the way it should. Then what people do, they divert it down in the drain, and ultimately the whole purpose is lost. So just by putting onus on the developer for the first 5 years, it doesn't solve the problem. Because eventually the society will take over, the members who are staying in there take over. So a sewage network is very important. So that way, infrastructure development is a major pain point as well. I think in terms of what Anirudh also earlier mentioned, I'm coming back to the single window system of clearance. We need IT systems to be in place. Right now, Go Online, like he rightly said, is a facade, and at the back end is still paperwork and all is still going on. So if these are addressed in some way, in the larger perspective of things, I think we will be able to achieve quite a bit in terms of doing better business, being on the larger scale of the industry. Yeah.
Sriram, there's this consistent talk or rather, buzz about Goa being targeted as a hardware hub. How do you think whether Goa is really suited for that and how things are moving? Do you have any idea?
I think for hardware hub, we still have to go a long way because we don't have any ecosystem in Goa at all for that. We don't have the component suppliers. We don't have the basic vendor requirement supply chain in Goa. Everything has to come from outside. And if you're getting into hardware of a competitive nature, Goa will find it very difficult. And we don't even have these kind of clusters where there are companies which are all practically doing similar jobs and interdependent on each other, so that you are able to get a lot of things sourced locally. It's not there. So I think we have to put a lot of efforts into it. We'll have to see that it is not lopsided, so that we just get one big company and then there's no supporting infrastructure or ecosystem. Then that will be a big issue because they will struggle. And if they are in a very competitive space, it will be difficult for them to really compete with other states and other companies. So, yes, it is possible, but we'll have to do a lot of work for it. I don't think today we are at that stage to say that we have a completely great condition for hardware manufacturing in Goa. Goa probably is very ideally suited for pharma, of course it's already there, biotechnology, pharma, IT,
knowledge economy,
knowledge-based industries. I don't think it's as of now ready for hardware.
Anirudh, as the president of GSIA, what is the take of your organization on the rather pathetic state of many industrial estates in Goa?
Yeah.
And how would you alleviate these issues?
Your question comes at a very good time because first of all the infrastructure inside industrial estates is maintained by the Goa Industrial Development Corporation. Now, this is a sort of a self-funded body, and there is, to the best of my knowledge, hardly any grants that this body has got. So, all management of infrastructure has happened by the corporation itself. Over the years, this corporation has grown in size beyond what it needs to be, which means that it's not hasn't been a nimble, small but effective organization, and thus has been lacking free funds for doing infrastructure work. Now, the cascading effect of this for over a decade of neglect has led to really poor infrastructure in many pockets. Some of the areas we've been able to get strategic funds and do them properly, but by and large, you are right that the infrastructure has not been in place. There is visible infrastructure like the roads, so potholes makes people angry, but there's a lot of underlying infrastructure that has long life and has effects in the future, right? So electricity, water, the basic bijli, sadak, pani and internet today. To fix all of this requires a lot of money. My estimate is probably about 500 crores, maybe lesser, maybe more, somewhere around that. But what IDC has done right and has done over the last two levels has auctioned off a few strategic pieces of land, and already the money is pledged towards not infrastructure but long-lasting infrastructure. The whole idea of just retarring roads every 3 years, there's no gold to sell to do that next consumption expense. But if you do a road that has a 25-year life, then you have something to work with. I am previous to me, Mr. Kochkar, and now I serve on the council of the on the corporation's board, and in the current leadership, it's being run as well or better than it has ever been run. So to that, there's no doubt. But even then, you can't wish away your collective wrong decisions. And if we were to project the costs of the corporation going forward and its income going forward, it's still a challenge. It's not like we've solved. We will solve the visual infrastructure flaws in the next year. I'm pretty confident about that. But there's a deeper cleanup that is required. And again, technology comes in over there, right? You cannot have concepts of pump operators when smart meters control the entire industrial water network. You can't have pump operator in every room pressing a button in the morning and evening. So we can't be still stuck in that era, in that time warp. Since I have the mic and I've learned over the last 6 months that it's very difficult to let go when you have a chance to speak. I was talking to one a very senior bureaucrat, and he mentioned about this one concept. So I thought I'll just share this because this is linked to large-sized governments. He's like, there's a concept called the Parkinson's law. He couldn't remember, but I looked it up. It's called the Parkinson's law of bureaucracy, which means that bureaucracy basically behaves like a fluid, that it fills up whatever time and people space that you give it. So if you give it a 1-year deadline, even if it's possible in a minute, it will fill it up to do it in a year. If it's a job of one person, but you keep 10 people, then the 10 people share it in such a way that that job is done by, there are papers written on this. And if they ever wanted to test that, probably Goa is a laboratory or an experiment to check it, where there are way too many people to the number of the actual work that needs to be done. And we've sort of found ways to fill it up with sort of noise. So that needs to be fixed, A lot of political will required for that. So I don't know how we can get that answer.
Damodar Bab, I would like to ask you, what has been the experience of Investment Promotion Board? How effective has the Investment Promotion Board been to the intent that it was set up to what it has done till date?
Yeah, basically if you see, the Investment Promotion Board was formed because of all these hurdles people were facing. The main idea...
The single window aspect of it.
It was like a single window. Like he said, we have to go to different departments. The idea was that once you go to Investment Promotion Board, put your project, you should get a verdict from all the departments together. But unfortunately, I would say it has added as one more window, because after getting the in principle approval also, you have to go to all the departments. So initially what was main idea, because Parikar started it, the idea was they appointed a CEO which would be non-political. You know, the person with a business mind will be sitting there and doing it. And he should have been given powers. You know, only person sitting is not enough, because he should be given a power so that he can, on behalf of all these people, like forest clearance, pollution clearance, all these people together, he can help industry to get all these clearances. But unfortunately, that thing didn't happen. The person who was appointed as a CEO, his salary itself was not paid, so he frustrated and he went. And then finally it landed on the bureaucrat. It got connected to DITC, so it was given as an additional charge. And we were hoping that it will again come back to new CEO will be appointed, which never happened. So now current situation is like that. If you cannot do any project on your own, like he said, industrial project, you come to IPB and they will give you clearance. Now, if I was a part of a board, Anirudh also now part of a board, I was surprised that tomorrow if the IPB meeting is there, as first like day before I would get the agenda or right on the table, and you have to take a decision which is in crores, projects are in crores. And it looks like everything was planned earlier, you are just to give a stamp. You say yes, yes, yes. So I literally used to go full night to study, find out, make some calls. And I used to object, like I feel this is not okay. So they'll keep it aside. So I was becoming one more hurdle there. So now I feel, I don't know how the projects are clearing recently. Anirudh will be able to tell you like that. But the idea is like that. It has become one more window. Or if you want to get done some work inside, that is the way you should get it done.
I will move the line of questioning beyond policy now. I'll talk about real business. I'll ask you a question about competition. Of late, we have been seeing a lot of upcountry real estate players coming to Goa. How does that impact the market, and how would you look at it as a competitor?
So, first of all, I think we are blessed to be in Goa. In the kind of nature that we have and the kind of culture that we have. And since, like you said, homegrown business and people coming from outside and trying to get their business set up here, it's brought in a lot of new perspective to the Goan developers as well, because we were always in a cocoon and we did not probably think beyond a certain point of view in terms of design elements, in terms of functionality, in terms of what the customer wants. We did that. It's not that we didn't do that, but we were focused on our domestic consumption, local requirements. Now the perspective has completely changed. It's got national. Completely viewpoint has changed, the requirements have changed, the culture has changed, and the people who we are addressing right now, or the developers who are coming from outside are addressing, are not from Goa. They are outside Goa. And a different, completely different viewpoint, completely different design. So it's time that we adopt, adapt, change, which we are doing. I think the new generation understands this difference. It's not that it is anything bad. It's a fantastic thing to happen, because this is a part of an evolution. You are bound to grow, right? So at some point of time, you will be exposed to the outside world. How long can you remain in a cocoon? So I think that way it's a fantastic learning experience, and we are picking on from there. But one thing on a lighter note, I think we discussed this backstage, Anirudh and I, that the kind of hurdles that we face in getting development permissions and everything else here in Goa, it is an entry barrier for somebody from outside to come and start setting up their business here. So I think that's yeah, you had
But then you'll be surprised. They are moving much faster than Goan players.
absolutely, absolutely, yes.
Sriram, there's a parallel world here in the startup ecosystem, according to my observation. So you have very mature startups, successful startups, and then there are some young local startups who are struggling for meagerly funding. How how should we bridge that gap? Because there's a huge lack of exposure to the local homegrown startups. They don't know the bigger picture. They don't get proper mentoring. They are not exposed to good funding, nor do they have proper ways to start themselves up. They just know that they have technology and they know the buzzword of startups. So how would you like to, how would you look at this gap diminution?
No, I think we definitely need a lot of support system here. So I will not say we should depend on the government to do everything because, see, the government can only go to a certain level, right? I mean, they have so many other priorities, so we can't expect that everything will be done by the government. I think the industry also should step in. And we as industry people also should take that responsibility and try to bring some kind of a structure where we are able to take these startup companies and mentor them as much as possible. Like every company probably can take about 4 or 5 startup companies as mentors and try to help them through the process. And maybe we have larger kind of umbrellas where these startups can be made to participate, maybe even help them with training programs, help them with some kind of workshops. I think that's very important because I think it's better for the startups right from the beginning to understand the path that they're going to take right in the beginning so that then they can decide they really want to be a startup or not. See, everybody is not in any way cut out to be a startup, right? So you need to have a certain different kind of a mindset to be in the business side. And for that, everyone should know right at the beginning what's going to happen to them and what path they will take and what struggles they will have to go through and how they can be overcome, right? So these kind of workshops which can focus on these aspects and link them with various, enabling agencies, whether it's funding, whether it is, skill development or is it training, that's something that has to be done. And I think we should also play a role as industries. What you're doing now, for example, by having this kind of a setup itself is a start, right? I really appreciate you for that. And I can see a few of such activities already happening. These should be taken up more seriously, and I think we all should play a much more proactive role as people in general. It can happen, and I think this is the right time because, first of all, there is a lot of startup, energy in the country and in the state. There is a lot of opportunity opening up right now, not only nationally but internationally. The global opportunities are huge. As you know, everybody wants, looking at India as an alternative to China, for example, and this is a huge opportunity by itself. And we have to capitalize on that. And so it has to be a much larger picture than just, small kind of steps. So we all have to play, I think, as a consolidated role. But it can be done. I think we're all going in the right direction right now. It's a bit slow, but if we can get our act together faster and work as teams, and where I also, like I said in my earlier question, the government should also be a part of it, the industry should be a part of it, and we all should work together. But it can happen.
Damodar Bab, there was a time, maybe 25, 30 years ago, when people were very interested, youngsters were very interested in setting up manufacturing units. Don't you think that's on the wane now? There are less people wanting to start a manufacturing unit. And what are the reasons for that, according to you?
See, currently, if a new fresher or with some experience, like how I started, wants to get a plot, literally it is impossible. It's really impossible because the ways now the plots are given, either it is on auction or it is some few plots are given by advertisement and by a screening committee. And there is nothing like, I have seen last maybe 20, 30 years, absolutely no local person can get hold of a IDC land. Fresher at least. Because there are various conditions. Over a period of time, the regulations have changed. We tried to improve it. We said that we will, put 20%, keep aside only for locals. But last time when that amendment came, by mistake the alphabet got changed and they said that only in the, what do you call it, we were also talking about the built-in plug-in play. That 20% was only in plug-in-play, but plug-in-play never happened. IDC didn't do the plug-in-play. The normal, so regular plots which was advertised went through the local thing, and the conditions were there that if you have the old plot, then you will get a marks, 50, 60 marks. So these people literally cannot get it, and if you try to get it on a, see, suppose you wanted to start a business, there was an opportunity that you could sublease from somebody else. But our sublease regulations also were so tight. We were not allowing more than 3. There were a lot of restrictions. So for sublease also you have to go up and down. So that also hampered people from coming and starting the manufacturing unit. But if you see that 30 years back, many of us started on our own. Local Goans like myself, Blaze, you can name it, who are now reached so high. Shekhar, Atul, so many names I can give. But if you see last 20 years, absolutely no. Because our policies and the direction in which the plots were given had changed. Every plot has started price tag or the auction, which a new person, startup cannot invest. From where he will get that money? He is having a good idea, but he cannot do that. So at least we, government should start some plug-in-play at a concessional rate. You create infrastructure with power, everything, and ask people to come, because there are facilities. EDC is giving loans at such a cheaper rate now. We paid 19% interest for MSFC to get a loan. Now you are getting at 6, even 2% in a backward area. But where they will start? So I tried to suggest so many times, but all this thing was so goofed up, so getting that in order. But now we are as you said, in a position, and India also is prospering, and everybody is looking at India for a new. And people, we have such a great talent and mind, educated people, lot of money in Goa. So only opportunity we have to, lot of thinking has to go, and such a directional approach should be there to do this. It's not that it's not possible. All of us have various ideas, but to get that ideas in a right direction, somebody on top has to facilitate it. So this is my view.
Anirudh, there are lots of schemes from the central government, from the state government. These schemes don't actually percolate down to the young entrepreneurs who want to take advantage of it, or who these schemes are meant for. What do you suggest organizations like yours should do, to take them to the grassroots, to see that these schemes actually go to the people for whom it is intended for?
So, most schemes that are there, whether state or central, the state are better. The central ones, see, there's limited amount of money, and if the number of people are more, then the per person what you can give cannot be of that size, So the schemes are that little bonus, that little feel good at the end of the day, but they cannot be the basis of your decision whether to start or not. Whenever somebody asks me whether they should go for it, I say, first do your due diligence without the scheme, decide whether you want to do it irrespective, and if that comes, that is a bonus because of the risks that are inherently there in all these schemes. The one thing I would not suggest is to have road shows of these schemes. You can increase the size of the scheme, but don't have the road show. Like, promotion can be done for free. Today, if it's a good scheme, there's a good website of it with all the information. We can make it viral in a day, just like your show today will go viral or any of the content that is created will go viral. So we don't need physical big shows to promote schemes. The schemes will promote themselves if there's good content of that available online and they are of a nature. There's also a trust barrier, right? They don't trust that they'll get it in time. One or two people get it and the word will go around that, oh, this you can get really quickly. So I think we shouldn't give any ideas about having more events on promotion of schemes. You should just design good schemes and as and when required. For example, yesterday we were sitting on with the National Stock Exchange for the Emerge, which is the IPO, SME IPO. So one of the ideas that came out there is that instead of giving a reimbursement of the expense of the IPO, a government could say pledge some fund to say that what if you are good enough to get into an IPO, we will buy some shares of your company. Now this is not an expense, this is an investment. Tomorrow that company grows up, the government earns, but it's also like putting your money behind your people, you know. So these kind of ideas I think are good options of investing government target. I completely agree with Shriram sir that it's not the job of the government to be, it is our role to help the startups. And you put it very rightly, startup has become a buzzword. I don't think, both of them are first gen startups and they first had strong work experience and have leveraged that into those stories about IIT Delhi ke, whatever, hostel mein chalu hua, that's a dream. But if you really want to start something today, you should have some meaningful, tangible experience that you learn and that skill you apply to your startup. I know the land is difficult, but there was much more land that time. There isn't land today. Even if we were to argue that we'll give them the land, cost of land I'll give it consider zero, but built up is at 20,000, no, today. That money, where will it come from? And then the starting of the business and the hyper competition. Back then we were smaller micro economies guarded by our GHR, SSIDCs and all of that, giving, ensuring business. Today we are in the world of GEM. Someone from Haryana can send at 4 rupees to Goa and that's all the benefit you have. So simply saying I'll start something without any knowledge about it cannot help you overcome the other competition challenges that are there. So I don't want to just simply, pump up people to, start up, this is good, give some buzz lines and then them getting into debt or something like that. So, you have to know your strength and your competitor's strength.
Always, how do you look at the real estate industry growing currently in Goa?
Can you repeat that, please?
Yeah. How do you see the real estate industry growing currently in Goa? Growing.
Yeah. I think it has a fantastic potential. There is no doubt. Again, to put in perspective, Goa is about 65% forest. And of the balance 35, about 15 to 20% is in orchards, agricultural, non-development zones, all that. What remains is a mere 15-20% of the settlement areas that are there. So in the geography of Goa, when you see this as a figure, the demand-supply gap will always remain. Land is not manufactured anymore, right? So there is a lot of potential because one, land obviously is in a shortage. Second thing is, I'm looking at this from a different perspective now. Not real estate, but tourism. Now, currently, Goa is selling mostly second homes, holiday homes. Major market share is of that kind of target market, coming from the fact that we have outside developers coming and presenting it from outside. So when you talk about a second home or holiday home, we also need to understand that it is linked to tourism in some way. So tourism is, again, I would say the backbone also to some extent to the real estate in the way it is growing currently. So in this point, I will also address your previous question where I would say that how do we sustain this? We need to sustain this also by having the right kind of tourism, not by quantity, but by quality. If you not only focus on hospitality or beach tourism, but we get something which is more proactive in terms of bringing people in. Like tomorrow you go to a holiday destination, say Ooty, and same hills, you don't want to see the same hill again. You want to go on some other hill station the next time when you go on a vacation. Similarly, why would a person come back to Goa to see the same beaches? They'll probably want to go to some other unexplored location like Gokarna or any other close by location or anywhere in the country. So point being that if tourism is developed, we are directly linked in some way to real estate in the second home market. And that's where I think it would be coming from. Of course, there are a lot of issues that need to be addressed while this is happening. I don't know if you want me to address those in any way. So, yeah, so like I was telling you, real estate is seen in a very, was at least till sometimes seen as in a very bad light from two angles. One is from the consumer's perspective, the other one is from the government perspective. I'll tell you one perspective, which is the consumer perspective, builder cho rasta. So at the end of the day, that is the image that was always in the mind of people. But since RERA came in 2017, the national average of delinquency has come down between 1 to 1.5%. Goa are very nice people. We don't have that kind of issues. Our delinquency rates were anyways lower than national average even before RERA came in. So that way, we were in a much better situation in terms of trustworthiness and the kind of products we would deliver on time or have transparency in the business itself. So from that viewpoint, I think that builders not being in the right space, that thing is coming down. Even banking, from that matter, it was real estate is always a negative sector. Now slowly that thing is going out. So I think we are coming out in a better position. From the other side, where the government always thinks that the builders make extraordinary profits, and that's why the tax liabilities on the builders in all angles is different, whether it is from, not necessarily income tax, but indirect taxes, GST or infrastructure tax or everything. So the loading is quite a bit, which ultimately gets translated to the consumers. So these are the issues which need to be addressed. So this, if you see this whole game plan, it reminds me of a small story where I'm trying to portray the kind of effort that the industry is trying to do to bring out. I'll tell you a very short, small story where a man was passing by a lake where he sees a cat drowning, and he sees, okay, I need to save this cat, so he puts out his hand and tries to save the cat. The cat, in its instinct, scratches the man. So instantly, this guy pulls his hand back. After a few seconds, he is drowning again, tries again, scratch back. 3-4 times later, then the cat, he was able to rescue the cat. Another bystander who was looking there asks what was the idea of, you're getting bitten and scratched and hurt by this animal. Why did you try? If I didn't try, I would have died. So I would have didn't manage trying. So the idea is that we are trying from our end to improvise our image. We are trying from our end to get the government to listen to us. All these things are happening. So we are getting hurt in the bargain, but it's part of the game, I guess.
Great final words to say, but now let's have a closing from each one of you gentlemen. Yeah. Starting with Anirudh. How do you, the topic for the day is doing business in Goa.
Yeah.
You can close.
I would like to show, just last 2-3 days we've had an auction, an IDC, and for the first time we've had 100% offtake rate, which means that clearly there is interest in Goa. The juxtaposing to this is that 25-30% of our old businesses are closed. So Sriram sir rightly put it that there are cycles like starting, surviving and then closing. And all three cycles need to be addressed. When we said investment promotion board, we said this, we tried to address the starting cycle. When we say ease of doing business, we are trying to address the the ongoing cycle. There's nothing about the closing cycle. The entire cycle, if it is fitted up, then the ecosystem will reinvent itself. Miles and miles to go, but certainly not gloomy. So, and bigger the companies we get, more the ecosystem grows. So, only hoping for better times ahead.
Thank you, Anirudh. Sriram, sir.
Yeah, I think whatever we discussed is not really Goa-centric. It is a national issue. So it's all over the country. Every state has problems. Some states may be doing better in some aspects and some in different aspects, but the problems still remain the same. So keeping all that in mind and looking at the overall situation, I think Goa is in a much better position for us to be a startup state, I think. So if we get our act together, and like I said, if we all play this together, I think Goa can actually set a role model in this aspect. And I wish that will happen. And I can say from my side, and probably from all our sides, we'll do our best to do that happen.
Thank you. Damodar Babu.
Yeah, as Shriram said, see, we are in a better position. Now, if we want to see that, if we think that the business is important in Goa, after mining almost stopped, and tourism also is a little bit shaky, and a lot of the income actually, income which is generated for Goan budget, if you see, is from the business part, manufacturing as well as other business, trading and all. Now what I feel is when you look at this and create a situation that more and more business happens, you should leave aside the profiting part of it. You know, what I would suggest is, in my first hearing for the new government also I said that 2 years at least, you don't think about making money from the business. You concentrate on how to make business grow. So once you do that, once the business grows, automatically you will get money. So you concentrate on how you put up things in the right perspective, so that more and more people get interested in doing business, rather than keeping their money in investing in FD or in other places. Because we want activity to happen in Goa, so that people also get jobs. If you see now, everybody wants government jobs. Nobody wants to work here. We have to get people from outside. So this cycle has to function properly. And I always feel that, in a society, education should be separated from business. You should not convert any education or a medical thing in a business perspective. The same is true for the politics also. When you go on somebody, because you are responsible for the entire people around. So you should not think as a business perspective for yourself. You should present it for everybody. This is my saying.
Thank you. Aviz?
So, like I said, we are blessed to be here in Goa, and we have resources at our disposal which we can put to best use. I think everybody here has kind of covered everything in terms of what I'm trying to say, but what we need to understand is make best use of what we have at hand and go forward from here to the next generation to hand on the baton. Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen, for that very interesting and invigorating session. Could we get anybody from the audience to ask questions? Is anybody interested to know, or are you all happy with what's transpired on stage? Please ask, sir. You can pose the question and leave.
Actually, I'm going for a meeting of the Goa Bachao Abhiyan, and with due respect to all the businessmen here, if I want to show a candlelight to the environment of Goa, in the rampant hill cutting and filling of the fields and cutting of the trees, today again I'm fresh from agitation to save one tree in Santinez. So now the one reference was made to the 39A amendment to the TCP, which is, I feel, will spell doom for the environment of Goa. And this amendment is very, it's draconian, and it's going to spell disaster for Goa, and wherein rampant land conversions are permitted, will be permitted, and you find that a large number of people from outside are entering Goa, and they, in the lure of Goa's greenery is being denuded, and what we find is that the Goan businessmen, I think, are losing out to the Delhi-based or Bombay or whatever. But the flip side is the environment is also getting largely affected. So I wanted to know your... there's no question, it's an observation.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else in the audience would like to pose a question? Yes, Mr. Amin Ladakh, past chairman of Goa Management Association.
Taking a clue from my good friend who spoke about the trees, I see so many good trees on the Panjim-Miramar road. And every year in the monsoon, all these trees, they have a natural death in form of some sort of a collapse. Why can't our botanists from Goa or the forest department have a thorough check of all these trees and save them before they can die their own death? There are a lot of trees which can be saved that way. Now, it's not connected with reality or anybody, but it's an environment question.
Yes, thank you. So I take that there are no further questions from the audience. And thank you, gentlemen, for the wonderful session that we have today. And thank you once again. Could we come and do the presentations now?
आयज आमी पळयतात की खऱ्या अर्थान गोंयान जो धंदेकारा विशयी जें कितें उलोवप जालें तें भरपूर मोलादीक अशें आशिल्लें. देखून हांगासर आयिल्ल्या दर एका पॅनलिस्टाक आमी मनाकायजांतल्यान उपकार आटयता. मागता सचिन सरा लागीं की तांणी तांच्या सगळ्यांचो भोवमान ह्या खिणाक घडोवन हाडचो. सगळ्यान पयलीं सुरवातूच अशा मनशां कडेन करया जे आयज सकाळच्यान सगळ्यांक कितें कितें दीत आयिल्ले आसात, पूण आयज आमच्या कडल्यान ही मानाची अशी भेटवस्तू ते स्विकार करता. हर्षवर्धनजी सर आणि हेर मानेस्त. गोंयचे दायज आनी गोंयची अस्मिताय समज आमकां राखून दवरपाक जाय जाल्यार ह्या धंदेकारांचो भरपूर मोलाचो असो वांटो आसतलो. हातूंत मात्तूय दुबाव ना. सैमाची जापसालदारकी घेवन आनी गोंयचे उदरगती खातीर ह्या सगळ्यांनी एक जावन जायते बिझनेसीस जे आसा ऑपॉर्च्युनिटीज ते तरणाट्यांक उक्ते करपाक जाय. सगळ्यांक भरपूर यश आवडटा, बरी भलायकी आवडटा आनी मनाकायजांतल्यान देव बरें करूं सुद्दां म्हणटा. It's a sound to appreciate your presence. मनाकायजांतल्यान देव बरें करूं.